Go ahead and call to order the board meeting for the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board. The date is Friday, February 20th, 2026, and the time is 9 a.m. So let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you start us off, please?
Certainly.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, let's just go to agenda item number 2, discussion of possible action to excuse board member absences, if any. Ms. Castillo Escalante will not be here. She is on maternity leave. And we don't see John, but expect to see him soon. So I would entertain a motion to excuse Ms. Castillo Escalante's absence.
Chair, I move that we accept the absences as reported.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Number 3, opening remarks from the chair. I'll keep this short, but I do want to say, first off, those who have had difficulties with the Realm portal, we understand. It's been difficult, but we're working on it, and it is improving. And we expect everything to be rolling smoothly very shortly. That being said, my email address is on the website. If anybody has any issues that's watching this, email me. I will connect you with staff, and we will get your problem solved. Okay, that's all I have. Agenda item number 4, election of the vice chair and secretary. Tell me how this goes.
There were no nominations at the last meeting, so the floor is open for nominations.
Okay, well, I'm going to nominate Martha Gail Reed Lynch as the vice chair. Okay.
You don't need a motion, it's just a vote.
Okay, so all in favor of Martha Gail being the vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And then for the secretary, I'm going to nominate Rolando Castro. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So now on to the appointments to the committees. Obviously, the executive committee will be me, Martha, and Rolando. And moving on to the Budget and Finance Committee, the chair will be Stephanie Robinson, and then Ms. Escalante Castillo and Clayton Ripley. Education and Licensing, Mr. Castro will be the chair. Mark McAnally and Mark Luna will be on that committee. And the Enforcement Committee will be chaired by Ms. Reed Lynch and will include Mr. Eichelberger and Ms. Robinson, Dr. Robinson. And then the last one is the TALCB Joint Audit Committee, and Mr. Ripley will be our member on that committee. So I thank you for your dedication in these different committees and look forward to great things. Number 6, agenda item number 6, general comments from visitors on non-agenda items. Do we have any speakers today? Okay. Please approach.
I'm Rob Edwards, just representing ATA. Just want to say hello. We appreciate your service.
Thank you. We appreciate your attendance.
Thanks for being here.
Let the record show that Mr. Eichelberger is now in attendance. Good to see you, John. Okay, number 7. ratification of the official record of the November 13th, 2025 board workshop and November 14th, 2025 board meeting, and as approved for posting on the website by the secretary of the board. I would entertain a motion to ratify the record.
I move that the board ratifies the minutes of the November 13th, 2024 board workshop and the November 14th, 2025 board meeting. Are those dates right?
Should be 25.
Yeah, November 13th, 2025 for the workshop and November 14th, 2025 for the board meeting.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next is committee reports, the executive committee. Those reports are in the materials. My standpoint, two things that were of interest in the executive committee meeting is we talked about creating a survey for licensees who are renewing their license and have taken the new valuation bias course to get some feedback on what our licensees and stakeholders think about the materials, think about the content. And so staff is in process of making that happen. The other thing is we started a conversation about about how artificial intelligence will impact not only our industry, but also this agency. And so nothing more than just starting a conversation, but that's something we want to start thinking about and how we prepare for those changes as they happen. And I think Kat actually has some insight on an advisory opinion that is being formulated by the ASB right now. And maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, this is just kind of revisiting an existing advisory opinion, talking about a lot of forms of different technology. I did listen in on the webinar yesterday about this new advisory opinion, and they're going to go ahead and reissue a new exposure draft of it, and it's truly for fine tuning. I think the biggest takeaway is that their perception is that use path is really sufficient as is to sort of incorporate how to address the usage of these things, but I do think that advisory opinion will give some good guidance on that.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for more on that exposure draft coming out. And then, you'll hear this a lot later, there's an opportunity for everyone to submit comments in their personal capacities if they see anything that they think need to be addressed or be supported.
Thank you. Okay, so that's really all I have for the executive committee meeting. Let's go to agenda item 9 with a report by education and licensing.
Chair, excuse me, may I have a couple comments and questions on the executive committee?
Of course.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it. Couple things I wanted to discuss. I did want to, and we can talk about this more in education, but I know you guys covered the Perea. We had a new lead licensed appraiser go through that process, so I did want to see if we have numbers on how many total are we looking at now for Perea, and is that being effective? I also wanted to talk a little bit about the practicum provider application that's now on our website to see if we've gotten any applicants in that area. I know we'll talk about REM later on the staff updates, I'm sure. But one of the bigger items that I did want to discuss is the survey. So I did see the notes where we are surveying the appraiser renewals and applicants. I wanted to see what type of information are we hoping to get from the survey. Let me start there, because then I want to kind of follow up with that.
Well, we talked about doing something very general.
Okay.
And not asking any kind of pointed questions or any direction. We're just looking to get some feedback. I have gotten some feedback, some good, some not so good. And I just want to try to understand the consistency of what the people who are having to take this course, so it's a required course.
Sure.
And understand where the community is.
Right. Okay, then thank you for explaining that. So the course we're talking about is the required course for valuation bias and fair housing. And so when I read the notes, my question was, one, what were we trying to glean from those that feedback? I do want to see the feedback as well. But the other thing was, we're asking the appraisal industry to give us feedback. However, that particular course is to protect the public as well. And as a public member, that's my role to make sure that we're protecting the public. And so with that feedback, are we looking to create change, or are we just gauging their experience? And then in order for us to use that feedback holistically to make any type of decisions, I would assume that we need to get all stakeholders' feedback. Not all, but we need a population, the community as well, because the course is designed to protect the consumer. So if we're just getting feedback from the appraisal industry and not the consumer base.
Well, at least my thinking on this is that the appraisal industry are the ones taking the course. And so they're the ones that are going to have awareness and opinions as
Right.
to what that is. And I do believe, yes, that this course is designed as a protection for the public, but the public is not taking the course.
Right.
I guess they could,
Right.
but they're not required to.
Right. And so that's what I guess I'm trying to understand. What decisions are we wanting to make based on the survey? What are we trying to accomplish based on the survey? Specifically as a board, what decisions are we trying to make
Well,
based on the
I
feedback?
think that potentially we wanted to take this information and provide it to the either the executive branch here in Texas, or the ASC. If we get overwhelming feedback one way or the other, well, maybe there's a problem. One of the concerns I have about this is a lot of this, the information contained in this course is already covered in principles, it's already covered in USPAP every 2 years. And I think that it does a disservice that we take this every 2 years required, learning the same information where we could be, as appraisers, taking other courses, learning about other things to expand, our knowledge of the appraisal, process.
And so if we're looking to take the survey feedback and potentially act upon that, then it's incomplete data, because the consumer, you're right, they're not going to know about the course directly because they're not in the industry. However, they are the recipient of what the course is designed to do, which is to protect them. So as stakeholders of any decisions we make to take it to the executive branch or anything, if we're taking this feedback as an action to do something, then we need to address all stakeholders involved. We would need to take a sampling of the consumers being affected, educate them on it, because they're not going to be aware of what we are all aware of, and give them an opportunity to speak on it. The reason why is because if we get, say we get an increased amount of complaints on the course for whatever the reasons are, and a decision is made at an executive level to, well, maybe we don't need to take this course as often, or maybe we don't need to take this course at all, that directly affects the consumer. But the consumer did not have an opportunity to weigh in on their feelings on whether or not this course was needed.
Well, any decisions on any changes would not be made by us. It
Right.
would be by the federal government, and
Right.
they have their own feedback processes that would allow for any member of the public to give them their opinions.
But I guess as a board, as an agency, we are soliciting opinions on behalf of the board and the agency to only a specific group of people. But we are not soliciting the opinions and feedback from if you're going to get, in my opinion, if you're going to do a survey, and it's just like in any research, right? Any data research collection, you want to make sure the people you're surveying, it's a diverse population of your stakeholders. Otherwise, the survey will be skewed. So if we're talking about evaluating this for the purpose of giving certain recommendations in the future on this course, then we must evaluate this holistically, and otherwise the data is skewed.
I think that's fair, and I would say that we should allow anybody who's taking this course that's not an appraiser to also give us feedback.
So that's what I would like to task the staff with. Let's have a discussion and find a way that we can include not all stakeholders, but a sampling of all stakeholders that this course affects, and allow them to give feedback, so that when we read the feedback, we're not just seeing it from one side, but we're seeing it specifically from the people that it is built to create, to protect. And I go back and I look at our mission as an agency. The Texas legislator put us in, we are an agency to protect the consumers. That is what this agency is built to do. We also regulate, but we are an agency that was built in the state of Texas to protect the consumer. So I would think if we're taking feedback, surveys, the consumer must have a say in what we're doing, because that is our mission, is to protect the consumer. So,
The only thing I'm concerned about is that this theoretical consumer,
yeah,
always happy to get feedback on
right,
anything.
right.
But the problem is they don't have the knowledge of the course.
I agree, but they do have the knowledge of why. Well, I agree. They don't have the knowledge of the course, 100%. However, we can provide resources to educate them on why the course was put in place in the first place, just to make sure everyone is on the same page. They do not have knowledge of the course. However, they have direct knowledge of fair housing issues and bias issues. So they are the recipient of what's produced in that course. So you see what I'm saying? So if we get a lot of feedback saying that this course is not needed, or this course should be reduced in any certain way, that affects the people that it was designed to protect. And so you're right, they're not going to know course content, the consumers. They're not going to know course content, but they are going to know why that course was created. And it was created specifically for that reason, because we as a nation saw that fair housing and bias was a problem. And so they need to weigh in on that. They need it, just like when they decided to put this course as an official course, they looked at multiple stakeholders' opinions on why we should do this. And a lot of those stakeholders were consumers that went to the federal government and expressed that they didn't say specifically, I want this in the course content, because the consumer's not going to know that. From an educational perspective, they're not going to know that. But what they did have an opportunity to do on the federal level is speak to why we need to address fair housing and why we need to address valuation bias. So they did have that opportunity. As a state agency, we should be doing the same thing the feds did. If we're going to change things, or if we're going to propose change in any way, then we should be soliciting, not just allowing them, anybody can give feedback, but just like we're soliciting the appraisers, we should be soliciting the public on their opinions as well, in order to get a holistic view.
Okay.
Apparently, there are new mics in this room, and I have to hit a button now. So I just wanted to remind everybody to hit a button before you speak. And that was not the
I
case.
hope my
at
button
the
is on. I said a lot of stuff, so I hope the public heard that. No, I'm just kidding.
Chair, this survey goes to the ASB and the federal.
We haven't done anything.
I mean, if we had this, we would provide it to the people in the foundation and all of that. And aren't they the ones that weigh in on this?
I mean, they would be the ones that would make those decisions. And I think we as a board would, it would be my opinion that we would, whatever data we do acquire, whether it be just from appraisers or other stakeholders, we as a board would decide what to do with that. It would, if that's information that we think is helpful, or we see something that there's overwhelming consent,
Sure.
whatever it may be, then we would take that information and decide as a board how to disseminate that, if at all. But, like I said, getting a lot of feedback from people about this, and I think it's worthy for us to learn more.
Absolutely.
From the appraiser industry, from the public, and we would have to figure out how to do that.
Sure. That would be definitely a discussion on how to do that. And I think it's a great idea to get feedback. I think anytime you implement any change of this magnitude, or any change that affects an entire industry, in order to assess its effectiveness, you must get surveys and feedback. So that idea is fantastic. I just want to make sure that we're getting the feedback of all stakeholders and not just a particular portion of the stakeholders, if that makes sense. So if the board is,
I certainly get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
My opinion is it should be. I want to get information from the people that are actually taking the course, but I do get your point, and I think we should try to incorporate that into how we gather information.
sure, so we can see both sides. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I won't hold us here all day. I know we all have things to do. But that was the one I saw that I did want to talk to you a little bit about. I just want to make sure that we're collecting all. So thank you for being open to that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
But the feedback idea is an excellent idea. I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay. Can we move now to agenda item number 9 on the Education Licensing Committee report?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and fellow members of the board, the Education Licensing Committee met on the 23rd. Thank you for being in attendance as well, Chairman Bolton. Our discussion and our agenda, most of it has been put into the full, has been presented to the full board that you'll see in later packet or in your packet that you received. One thing that General Counsel stressed about these proposed changes that are coming through is that as a board, if and when we get to that point to make those recommendations, that we send back to the AQB or the ASC or whomever we're dealing with, that we need enough time because our legislative process to make these changes, we occur only once every 2 years. And so we're different than other government bodies that meet all the time or every year or whatever. So that was the underlying theme on that. The only thing that I would have to say on these items is, again, it's 4, 5, and 6 you will find as your agenda items for new business, agenda items 15, 16, and 17. And I will defer to the staff to go over the details on that. But mainly, what we discussed was the changes to the rules, which you have approved previously. So we're going back to the formality of it's been out for public comment. So we're going to have a vote later on to accept those changes and codify our changes in the rules. On our agenda item number 4, we had a first exposure draft on changes to real property qualifications and criteria, and the main point in that is that they're looking at elimination of the college degree requirements obtaining certified residential and general credentials. Item number 5, discussion and possible action on the concept paper skill-based. This is a concept paper, so it's pretty wide open. You'll see when you get to the document, pages 9 and 10 is where I focused a lot when I read this about what they're looking at doing. So you'll need to take a close look at that in your packet as well. Then we moved on through. The committee reviewed action items identified, and as I said, we recommended these items 4, 5, and 6 to come to the full board for discussion. We want to appreciate everyone's input and observations on that. Item number 8, we've already discussed, is an executive committee discussion that you all just had, and so at that point, we adjourned. That's our report.
Okay, any questions, comments? Very well. Moving on to agenda item number 10, staff reports on agency operations, initiatives, and statistical data. Good morning, Executive Director, roll calls.
Oh, now it is. It popped on as I was asking that. Well, good morning to each of you. Since our last meeting in November, we have celebrated 3 births at TALCB. One of your own, of course, board member Paola Escalante Castillo delivered a healthy boy at the end of last year, as well as a girl from Melissa Tran, within about 2 weeks of that time, I think. And then a few weeks ago, Emily Hine, another member of the TALCB team, had a baby boy. So I hope that means at the May meeting that there are a lot of exchanges of pictures, if not maybe a baby in the room, who knows? For us in our work world, it has been a long few months. We launched the Real Estate and Appraiser License Management Portal, the Realm Portal, in mid-December, and that launch did not go as planned or designed. I'm not sure any tech project goes as planned or designed, but I have never been more proud of the way staff has risen to the occasion to find solutions. I know that we can't always have things go as planned, but we can control how we respond, and our staff has done a beautiful job of that. You know, training is not the same as experience, and our staff was trained on the new system in advance, of course, but every day in the new system for our staff, as well as applicants and license holders and all of our users alike, is another day of experience with this new product. So we're all learning together. By rolling out the Realm portal, we've really changed the core of our business. It's a massive undertaking. It's not just a new website or a simple changeover. It's really a brand new engine that runs the whole agency, TREC and TALCB alike. I do want to note that the challenges that we are experiencing on the TREC side versus the TALCB side are very different. What the board can handle in manual processing, the TREC volume does not allow. So on the appraiser side of things, we are in great shape. And so I wanted to kind of walk through some of what we're up to there. So license holders can renew and manage their license today with the new portal. There is a learning curve, of course, and we are here to help and helping people daily. They can get in touch with us. Applicants are the same. We're processing applications, but we are slower than typical. For example, we're still working through January applications. That said, this is a temporary delay. We expect to be processing, more and more as we return to automations. Much is manual right now. We have been significantly delayed in our ability to issue exam authorizations, but just within about the last week, that solution has been applied and we are caught up on those exam authorizations. So nobody's waiting for that exam authorization. We're just simply slow in the processing to a license. Education providers are also waiting a bit longer to get their course approvals. We are triaging these applications based on like the date of the event of that education being provided and making sure that we don't miss any of those so that those events can go on as approved. AMCs have struggled to see their panelist lists, but we have recently been able to apply a solution there so that they can now see all of their panelists. There's some flaws in those lists, not in the actual panelist names, but in some of the additional data there, their statuses and total panelist counts, things like that. But the biggest concern for AMCs was to be able to see those panelists, and they can do that now. We're continuing to fix those processes to further perfect that reporting mechanism for them. Phones, collectively with TREC, we are receiving more calls and emails each day than we can manage by a long shot. We have seen about 1,500 calls and hundreds of emails every day across the entire agency. We work hard to separate those board calls, those board emails out of those queues. But I just want to be clear that I am certain there has been an appraiser or more than one who has waited on hold for a very long time, just like TREC folks. It is very hard to get a hold of us right now. The volume collectively really won't subside until we see automation on the TREC side, which I am pushing for like a crazy person. That will help a significant number by automating, we'll be able to significantly reduce the backlog of applicants on the TREC side, therefore calming phones and emails. But as far as the board is concerned, we are reachable by phone. Best to call directly to our individual TALCB staff or email our TALCB staff. They can also email me. My email is on our website. It's also on Facebook and Reddit. If anyone wants to look there, I'm very accessible.
Wait, we're on Reddit?
We're not. We are not. I am, apparently. Only in the comments. No, it's not on purpose. On the whole, we are beginning to stabilize. We're looking for that continued stabilization. In late December, we had more than 100 tickets we were working on with the Acela vendor. We're down to under 30 now. Those are really important tickets that we have remaining. Many of them are data conversion. There continue to be tweaks to our our integrations with DPS and Pearson VUE for exams. We're also working on improving the performance. We had to turn off automation because of the performance challenges we were seeing on the system. Some of that doesn't make much sense to me, but that's where we are. So we had to turn off that automation and work on that performance with the vendor. The vendor is actively working on that so that we can then turn that automation back on to get through this backlog. One thing you'll notice in your materials is that some of our reporting is missing. And so I wanted to tell you just kind of why that is and make sure you know that anything missing will come in time. We were able to provide you with all of our education reports, most of our licensing reports, and we are missing some processing time and total counts there on the licensing side. And then our enforcement data looks a little bit different than you would normally see. We manually produce that. All of our reporting is and will be produced out of that Realm portal. And we prioritized fixes to this portal at launch by those that affected the most people externally, which meant that lower on our priority list was the fixing of our internal reports. So those will be solved and we will get you that data, but I wanted you to know why it looks a little different this time. Much of the testing of the Realm system was conducted by Emily Hine over the last couple of years, a member of our staff. And of course, Melissa Tran has led the charge for the appraiser team to ensure a smooth transition. She worked very hard to reduce inconveniences that our license holders have felt, and I've seen that work come to fruition in beautiful ways. In their absence, Ren Unathon, did I do okay? Okay, she's a hard last name. I do too, so I get it. Ren has taken the lead on really both of those tasks, and she is doing a remarkable job. She has risen to the occasion and covered Melissa and Emily's absences very well. I know she's tired, but I have loved the chance to work more closely with her and to see her kind of lead this team. And if you have any questions today that I can't answer, we might be looking at Ren. Okay, so that's the Realm. There are a few things happening outside of the Realm portal, and on the Trek Commission side, I talked probably for 15 minutes about Realm, and then I said, there might be someone here who just wants to hear contested cases or something else, and are going, what is this portal? I'm pretty sure everybody knows what it is, though. So in the non-Realm world, a few things. Ms. Robinson, you asked about Piraea. Since November, we have had one additional person licensed through Piraea. That brings our total to 10, which is great. That's an exciting thing. Additionally, practicum course and provider applications are now available on our website. It will be in the Realm portal. It is not currently. We will let that portal stabilize before putting it there. But we have a process in place to begin evaluating these consistent with the rules that you recently adopted. We have received, and this is different than what I reported in committees, but we have received 2 applications so far. And we will do additional promoting of the availability of these applications really in the coming months. I want our staff to return first before we go hog wild on just announcing that to the world. But we do have 2 applications, and we will review those. A couple more things. Jeff Strawmeyer, an investigator with the agency for 22 years, retired at the end of January, and we certainly congratulate him for a long and successful career. Mary Duffy has been promoted to take over his role as an investigator supervisor, so congratulations to her. We will not hire externally. We just hired the supervisor position, and then we'll stay at our current employee count unless our needs change. And then as you've talked about, as of January 1st, the valuation bias course became a requirement for renewals. This has been highly publicized, but we are still finding that some people are surprised. So we have been able to send curative letters to them saying, I know you're trying to renew, but you haven't taken this course. You need to take this course and then, finish your renewal. And that seems to have been received well. As discussed, we are working on that kind of optional survey for those who have taken the course to provide feedback on their experience. We have plans to begin issuing that survey with February renewals, as they will have taken the course. If we need to change any of our plans based on any further discussions y'all have, we'll stay nimble, of course. But we're just in the beginning stages, as you mentioned, Chair. And then lastly, I don't want anybody to think that we have forgotten about the request to change the logo. And so we will get going on that just once kind of our world stabilizes a bit. There's nothing stable in
I just want to say I've been representing that hat like crazy. Like, I'm already wearing the new logo. I love it.
That's awesome.
Yes, I love it.
That is fantastic. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
I'd just like to, first off, second what you said about Ren. You've been phenomenal on the emails that I've received from licensees when they've had issues, connected with staff. Ren has been on it. I've gotten great feedback from them once that resolution has occurred, and it occurs quickly. And so I commend all the staff, and especially you, Ren. Just great job.
Absolutely.
I'd like to third that. I've had the same experience with Ren and the staff, and once I say it, I mean, it's not 12 hours. I call Chelsea, and she picks up right on the dot. So thank you for being responsive, both of you.
Absolutely.
And I'll add to that as well. I had a whole note. I was going to say the same thing. I looked at the data and the volume in our customer service department. I thank the leadership for keeping this thing and staying the course and pushing through. I thank our staff. Y'all have been amazing. I've seen the increase in numbers, and y'all are handling it like champs. So thank you for representing the agency in such an amazing way. You're right, IT implementations can always go different ways, but you guys have really put in a lot of hard work, and we do appreciate it. We do appreciate it.
And I think it's really important to recognize once the realization that we have an issue, you guys have worked tirelessly. You've kept us informed as to what's going on. And the great thing is that we have seen vast improvement from the get-go. And so it was a rough start, but I'm confident that with your work, this will benefit the agency and the industry.
Absolutely. I believe that it will. I think it'll be a good thing.
Fast and fast.
Mr. Chair, I would like to extend my gratitude to Ren as well earlier this week. A little bit different, but I had questions, my staff had questions about onboarding candidates somewhere in between their career paths, between licensure and certification. There wasn't a clear line on that, but she did a lot of digging around and found the sources to help us out with that. Thank you.
All right.
Well, I'm sorry. I know y'all trying to go, guys, but I had some questions. I'm sorry. Chair, is it okay if I jump in real quick?
Oh, please.
Okay, so I did want to ask. I did see the numbers increasing in our customer relations division. Are there any resources that we can provide as a board to best support the team to handle some of those numbers? Because I know we went from like below a minute whole time to like a 16, right? And it's totally understandable because of the circumstances. Is there anything we can do to best support you all?
You know, I wish I had solutions. I wish I had something in my back pocket that I can say, yes, if you could do this one thing, then we would be solved. Our call volume is untenable. And I have tried with, so I'm engaging with mostly applicants, maybe 50 to 100 a day, that email me and say, you know, where am I in the process? I've been on hold every day for an hour. And I'm like, stop calling. You have a lot of people who are calling every day, which doesn't, I would be doing the same thing because you're kind of at a loss on what to do. So what we are trying to do is fix the system issues that is causing problems for the most people, while also helping people one at a time to just whittle away at that, so that our call volume will go down. We have requested by DIR, Department of Information Resources, ahead of launch for more phone lines.
Oh, good.
So that, because every person who waits on hold takes a phone line,
Right.
and we only have so many phone lines. So there's a lot of frustration around waiting on hold and then getting knocked off or
Right.
never reaching. We don't run that system, and I understand the frustration, but there's not anything we can do to fix the flaws of our phone system. So we did ask for more lines so that more people could wait on hold. That they were not enough lines, but we had maxed them out. And so then we reached out to the governor's office to say, we need more lines, and we can't get DIR to help us. They helped us get more lines, and now we're again at like the new maxed number of lines. But we can't really tell a difference because of just the significant volume. So all I know to do on that is to get us to a point where fewer people need to call us and to create other avenues to help people outside of that main phone line system. Emails are similar. When you look at, we're slow to respond on emails. When you go and look at someone who's emailed us 10 days ago, they've also emailed us 9 days ago, 8 days ago, 7 days ago. You know, so you got to get all of those emails from that one person and then figure out where they are in the system. So that's mainly on the Trek side, but appraisers get caught up in that. Yeah. This is an unacceptable call hold time for an unmanageable amount of calls. It will not remain the case, but we are not seeing a reduction yet. We got to wait for that automation to solve problems for a majority of people.
So are you still seeing like 25,000 calls in January?
December and January will be very similar.
Okay.
I was thinking more. What do you think? I mean, if it's helpful, what about additional temporary staff, or maybe even setting up a chat online where people, instead of calling and emailing, they can have a direct chat, and we can have a team maybe for that. I'm just throwing ideas out there just to kind of help. But
and I welcome those ideas. The learning curve on the system is steep enough that I've asked several of our divisions, can we just hire temps? And they're like, I don't think I can get them trained in time to be helpful. But we are pulling people from other divisions. I know there are people from every division answering emails. And then the other thing is there are many of us who are receiving needs from different sources. My phone, email, Facebook, direct messaging, all of the different email accounts. And many of us in exec have taken those requests and funneled them to a spreadsheet for our licensing division to kind of escalate those and pick off those people. They have recently increased the number of staff who are working that escalation spreadsheet so that we can just reduce the number of people waiting. The problem on the Trek side is that you have a lot of different, I call them buckets. You have people who started an application in the old system, but who finished their requirements under the new system in various stages. You have people who have been expired for 6 months and want to return. You have people who have been expired for more than 2 years. Those are different. We treat them differently. You have people who have been expired for more than 5 years. Well, those records did not come over. You have people who are expired more than 5 years, but recently applied right before we did data conversion. And they didn't come over because we thought that we didn't need that data because we have a records retention policy of 5 years. There's all these different kind of complicating buckets. Then you have people who, applied February 18th, but they've seen the chatter on Facebook and they immediately call me and say, I've been waiting for 2 days. When will I see that license? You kind of have all kinds.
Right.
And so our licensing division is working all of these different buckets of people that we treat differently in terms of how to get them their license, how to solve their problems.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that. I do appreciate it. And it sounds like you guys are doing everything you can to take care of that.
I welcome ideas. This is kind of my hand wringing it, in the middle of the night, but.
No, I definitely appreciate that. On the staff report, there was also a mention of the license under Education and Examination Division. There was an increase, which I was very happy for our licensed residential applications that rose from 67% to 83%. First-time pass rate, and I just felt that was incredible. So that's very good to see, because I know in the past we've looked at those types of numbers. So that is good. And then I did have a note about the processing delays of application timeframes, that sort of thing. But I think we talked about that. You guys are doing those manually and
Yes.
pushing those through.
And if anyone, we have had people saying, I really need this right now. I have work that if there's we are able to swiftly move if we've heard from y'all on somebody who needs their license quickly. But we're also just trying to work the oldest application forward for purposes of fairness.
Right. Okay. I think that's all the comments I had. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Director. Agenda item 11 is executive session to discuss pending litigation or obtain advice of legal counsel on agenda items pursuant to Texas Government Code 551, Tax 071, and personnel matters relating to the performance review of the executive director pursuant to Texas Government Code 551, Tax 074. So with that, we will adjourn or recess for executive system, and I would say we will be back probably in 30 to 40 minutes. Okay, we call this meeting back into session. The time is 10:21. We are back from executive session and moving to our next agenda item, which is number 12. Discussion and possible action to adopt amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code as follows. Ms. Santos.
All right. Good morning, Chair Bolton, board members, Kathleen Santos, General Counsel. Before you is agenda item number 12, discussion and possible action to adopt amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code, Section 153.13, Education Required for Licensing, 153.21, Appraiser Trainees and Supervisory Appraisers, 153.40, Approval of Continuing Education Providers and Courses. And this is on page 48 of your materials. These are rules that you all proposed at the November meeting, and they're before you again for adoption. The amendments to 153.13 clarify courses that are acceptable by the board to satisfy education requirements for licensure. The amendments to 153.21 clarify requirements related to supervisory appraisers and appraiser trainees. Specifically, they eliminate the requirement that appraiser trainee supervisory appraiser course be retaken by trainees and supervisory appraisers every 4 years, and that the course must be taken prior to by an applicant prior to obtaining a trainee's license. And finally, the amendments to 156.40 clarify requirements related to the duration of approval of board-approved courses and approval requirements for providers. We did not receive any comments, and so staff's recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of this board to submit for adoption amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code, sections 153.13, 153.21, and 153.40 as published, along with any technical or non-substantive changes as required for adoption. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
Questions, discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I move that board approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
I think Stephanie got that one.
It's fine.
It's okay. My mic wasn't on, so
Give it to her.
Mine's not either. So I have a motion and a second. Does anybody have any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, so on to agenda item 13, discussion and possible action to proposed review of 22 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 159, rules relating to provisions of the Texas Appraisal Management Company Registration and Regulation Act.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 13. So pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 2001-039, the TALCB rules found within this chapter will be reviewed and considered for readoption, revision, or repeal. This review will include whether the reasons for initially adopting these rules continue to exist. And just as a reminder, we're on our new schedule for rule review. Instead of doing everything in a single year, we're just constantly reviewing rules, one bite at a time. And so staff's recommendations is to authorize staff on behalf of this board to submit the review of 22 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 159, rules relating to the provisions of the Texas Appraisal Management Company Registration and Regulation Act to the Texas Register for publication and public comment. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve staff's recommendation.
I'll second. Oh.
I have a motion
Got this,
and
I'm done.
in several seconds. And so any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Now moving on to agenda item 14, discussion regarding performance review and salary of TALCB Executive Director. We did discuss this in executive session. For my part, I think that Chelsea has done a tremendous job under tremendous pressure to move things along. And though there is still work to do, I think we are in good hands, and we've got your back as far as any resources the board can provide.
Total support.
Thank you for all the hard work that you've done on not only the most recent IT implementation, but if we remember, you also brought us through COVID and all sorts of things. Coming onto the board 7 years ago, I guess it's been, I saw where we were, customer service-wise, our timelines, all of that during Sunset, and you have done an incredible job to get us where we are today, so thank you for that.
I want to say thank you as well. You have my full support, and I believe in you.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you, Chelsea. All right, agenda item 15, discussion and possible action regarding the AQB's first exposure draft of proposed changes to the real property appraiser qualifications criteria as of December 4th, 2025.
All right, hello again. So this item begins on page 63 of your materials and ends roughly about 1,000 pages later, I think. So before you is the AQB's first exposure draft of the proposed changes to the criteria. And just a reminder who the Appraisal Qualifications Board is, the AQB. This is the body that sets the minimum standards to become licensed as an appraiser and to maintain that license as an appraiser. So in other words, what education needs to be completed before you get your license, what does the experience look like, what exam must you pass? And for those of you already licensed, like what continuing education do you need to continue to take to maintain your license? And the way they go about making these changes is very similar to how we make rules. They release these exposure drafts, allow time for public comment, and they go back and determine whether or not they're going to adopt it as is. They make some more changes. They can go back and have additional exposure drafts to adjust comments, and then they can also withdraw or repropose. And so this particular draft was released earlier in December. And then for anyone watching and for you all, and this will come up later when we talk about comments, is there's the link to make comments on page 68 of the materials. And so with that little bit of background of what they do, some context, I was going to provide you all a high-level summary of the changes that they're proposing, and then discuss options related to submitting comments. And so in the document on page 67, that's sort of a rough outline bullet point that I will follow, but I'll skip around a little bit to kind of put it in order of what's most significant. And so the first thing, and probably the most significant change that they're proposing, is the elimination of the college course and college degree requirements for certified residential and certified general classifications. And they, in the exposure draft, they're making this change based a lot on the 2025 job analysis performed. And this is sort of related to their exam providers. They do this job analysis to kind of update the exam to see that they're testing the right things for people to become licensed. And that's one of the quotes that I in here is that, you know, the degree attainment did not correlate with better performance in appraisal practice. And they also found that the strongest predictors of competency were appraisal-specific education, the ability to write a USPAP compliant report, and exam performance. And so I'd like to think of this elimination of the course degree requirement and pair it with the next several ones, which is increasing qualifying education and removal of elective coursework. So they're removing requirements, but they're also adding some additional requirements. And so related to the increasing qualifying education, they're releasing it for all credentials except for trainees, and that too, the subject matter that they're adding to it was based on that job analysis where the test results were showing that there were areas of weakness in specifically sales comparison approach, market analysis, and statistics. And so they're adding in a module called Market Data Analytics Applications and Case Studies, and it's a little sprinkled about the current curriculum versus just like a single course. The next, I mentioned the removal of the elective course requirement. So I looked at the total hours of qualifying education, like what did that do to the net difference? There was no change to trainees. Licensed residential, there was no increase in hours. For certified residential, there was an additional 3 hours with this addition of the courses. And then for certified general, there's an additional 8 hours was what that results in. The next change is to updating the language and the structure of this, the criteria. You know, currently there's a whole bunch of sections. There's a section that applies to all license types. There's a section that applies to just trainees and everything, and it's kind of sprinkled about. And so what they've done is kind of consolidated definition sections. They've written it in more plain language, and they've moved it around to kind of follow the progression of an applicant. Like you start out as typically a trainee, and then maybe you upgrade. And so they've reordered it in that way. And I think that the purpose of that is to also assist the regulatory bodies and help them follow it in a more logical format. Revisions related to examinations. What they're proposing changes here is that as soon as a candidate completes their qualifying education, they would be eligible to sit for the exam. Currently, our current statutes require that qualifying education and experience be completed prior to being able to sit for an exam. And so Mr. McAnally mentioned earlier, like allowing sufficient time for jurisdictions to update their statutes and rules. This was one that we identified that, okay, we'd have to go ahead and change our statute to comply with this. Other changes related to experience, they kind of cleaned up some of the language related to PAREA. There was a little bit left to interpretation of, PAREA satisfying up to the full hours. They're being explicit. They're saying PAREA, whatever module you're taking, that will satisfy all the hours. So that will help with uniformity across the states. And then also, going to that minimum standard or going to the minimum criteria. There's some other avenues for those that do some ad valorem property tax mass appraisal practice routes, or clarify how they can submit their experience for that to be credited towards the experience requirement. And also they kind of acknowledge the specific example is like those working for the IRS and their appraisal in a context where it's confidential, just allowing a way that they can submit their experience in a way that they can get credit for without violating the confidentiality in that work environment. And then finally, one of the most significant thing is saying that trainee appraisers are not required to take continuing education. Like that is not a requirement. That's fairly significant because we do require trainees to complete continuing education. With that, moving on to comments, in the past, I've always stated this, like you all are welcome to submit comments in your personal capacities. Oftentimes when we get these exposure drafts, they don't line up with board meetings, so there really isn't an opportunity for a full board to submit comments. When the concept of the removal of the college degree requirement was in a exposure draft, or a concept paper previously, I think I mentioned this, it was, how you feel about a college degree is like very personal, so it's hard. I don't really have a recommendation for you all as a board to make a comment in that way regarding that, because it is a very personal opinion that's laced with that. And so if you all were to elect to submit comments as a board, it would be that, that they will allow sufficient time for all the jurisdictions to update their statutes and rules to comply with this. And I will say that the last several times they've made changes, they have allowed that. The date they adopted and the actual effective date has been at least 2 years, so that's given us sufficient time. So I will say that they know it. They know that's something that all the states are going to be concerned with.
Question: If I were to submit my opinions on any of this, would it be proper to submit it as a board member of TALCB?
Yeah, I mean, it's proper to submit it as a board member, but I wouldn't necessarily submit it as like
As
the
the
board,
board.
as
Yes,
the
yes.
board, on behalf of the board.
I'm an individual member of the board,
Yes.
yes.
And so I don't have a recommended motion. It's sort of up to you all if you'd want to submit as a full board or in your personal capacities, but in any event, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Does anybody want to propose a motion that we submit a board opinion?
Not without discussion.
Please start the discussion.
I think you could poll, perhaps, and what your opinion is.
Well, again, I think because there's so much to this, and I like, for instance, concern I have is the removal of elective coursework. I think elective coursework is really important, particularly if you are specializing in one area of appraisal. And I understand the uniformity aspect of it, but I do think diversity in your education is a good thing. And so I might perhaps personally submit a letter expressing concern about that. Although I don't know that we need to do that as a board.
I think the personal submission is sufficient.
So I think unless anybody wants to move to a board policy, then I think we move on.
And then the link to submit comments are in the materials, and the deadline they're asking for comments is March 3rd.
Okay,
Okay.
great. So let's move on to agenda item 16, discussion and possible action regarding the AQB's concept paper on skills-based pathway as of December 3rd, 2025.
Okay, so this one begins on page 191 of your materials. I want to start first by distinguishing what this concept paper is and how that's different from the exposure draft. The exposure draft that we just talked about, that's a live change that they're intending to make. These concept papers, they usually send out, it's more for discussion, more for getting ideas. Oftentimes, I would say this one and this item and the next item are a little bit different than others I've seen, because I do think that sometimes they tend to signal a direction that the AQB is heading. But I did not get the same sense in these, and that's based on the content of these concept papers, but also in their webinars when they've discussed it. So this one specifically is they want the concept of the skills-based pathway. And I think it's how to describe it. It's a way for someone to gain credit for things that are similar to appraisal practice. It's a skills-based approach, outside the traditional supervisory trainee relationship. And examples they have in here are like real estate agents, financial analysts, consultants, and others who research, market, collect, and analyze data or provide opinions about value in non-appraisal contexts. And so this is just this concepts of like how, so much in this concept paper is like how difficult it would be to sort of implement. It talked about the difficulty for us to verify. If they're not using USPAP, what is the standard? There's no clear standard to apply. And then also, the evidence that they would submit. It's really just attestation there isn't someone else who necessarily is monitoring it. And again, it's kind of circular. Okay, you're monitoring it, but what's the standard? And how do you verify it? And who is signing off on this? And so I think a lot of what this contains is like, we've looked into it and we see some flaws. Let us know if you have anything in addition. I think they do identify, the flaws pretty well. So I don't have a recommendation for comments on this because again, this is a little bit more conceptual. And it also is like a very personal opinion laced of how you feel about this or this approach. But I'm available for any questions if you.
So on this one, do we comment? We're able to comment on this one?
Yes,
as
this
well?
has the same deadline. You can use the same link.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so therefore, if no one has a motion to propose a board opinion, then I think we can go ahead and move on to agenda item 17, discussion and possible action regarding the AQB's concept paper on examination-only pathway as of December 3rd, 2025.
Okay, so for this one, same description as the last item. This is something that I think in doing their research and looking at everything the changes that they made in that exposure draft, sort of these other concepts came up and they dug into them a little bit and, they've identified some flaws in it, but they want to give the public an opportunity to weigh in if there's something they're missing. And the one here specifically is this concept of a super exam, which basically do away with our experience requirements or like how we demonstrate experience and develop an exam that can somehow demonstrate competency or minimum competency as an appraiser. And, a lot of the concept paper points out, we have a uniform exam, but the states and us aren't necessarily obligated to develop it. And so I think the biggest challenge is what would an exam look like that would demonstrate that? And, at the end, it's sort of just like, we don't plan on making changes, but if you have something, like, let us know if we need to do additional research or look into this more. And so again, for the same reasons, I don't have any recommended comments or anything, but you can, same deadline, same link that you can submit comments on this concept.
Okay, and again, unless anybody is making a motion that we propose a board opinion, then we can move on. That brings us to agenda item 18, discussion of possible action regarding agenda items for future meetings. Does anyone have any proposals? Okay, we'll move to agenda item 19, discussion of possible action to schedule future meeting dates. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 15th, 2026. And then we have the next three after that, August 7th, 26, November 6th, 26, February 19th, 2027. Does anybody have any objections to these dates at this time? Okay, so tentatively, these will be our dates. And now we stand on agenda item 20 and we are adjourned.